I never felt pressure to go to school or to study a certain thing or to become involved in government, seeing that this is how you get things done.
What would some of your advice be on, maybe seeking out a role model? What's your ideas on there?
No, I think mentorship is key, right? And I think that being in leadership roles, having the great fortune to lead organizations and to be part of an organization, I think we also have a responsibility to reach back out to our communities and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. And it's just amazing to see young people kind of asking questions, number one, but then having resources to be able to direct them to.
It's valuable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Native Edge podcast. I'm Chris James. I'm with my co-host,
Yvette Fielder.
Yvette Fielder. Where are we today, Yvette?
We're in the D.C. area, and it's raining.
It's raining. So Washington, D.C., today we are in our D.C. office, so that's pretty exciting. You can see behind us all the, not much behind us, but you can see.
We have a really cool office.
We do have a cool, we rent from the Indian Gaming Association. One of our board members, Ernie Stevens Jr. is head of that organization. Jason Giles is part of that organization, who will also be on the podcast sometime.
And they've been busy today.
So busy.
And Rich almost had a heart attack pulling into the parking garage. It's like so narrow, and we always rent, an SUV or something, because there's, a few of us that came to this conference. And
Did he get on the elevator?
No, he was on the elevator one, but we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he went up and down.
Because I think at one time, we do. This is an interesting building. You have you drive a car into the elevator. It goes down to the basement, and then you have very small parking places.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
definitely
too technical for me.
Well, if you drive one of those smart cars, it may not even let you into the elevator, I feel, because it has all those sensors. Don't get in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what else have you been doing?
We've been really busy at the Select USA conference and have met a lot of international folks that want to bring their goods and services and wares to the United States and hopefully to Indian country.
Yeah.
And had a lot of great conversations and met so many people. If you've never been, you should check out Select USA.
Select USA. Mm-hmm. And that's, we've done that 4 or 5 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And a couple of times I've spoke at Select USA. We always have a booth and a team really talking. There's, just to give you our long-term listeners who are like, what is Select USA? Select USA is a conference that U.S. Department of Commerce puts on, and it brings in international investors to come invest into the United States. So there's about 6,000 attendees there. All of the states have exhibit booths and are doing events. I know that there was on my calendar, there was breakfast with California today, and I think there's a reception with Alaska tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of different takeaways and things happening. All the economic development departments with the states and probably some of the city governments, of course, because they're trying to attract and have attraction, retention, and expansion for business development. And we would like to represent that for Indian country.
Absolutely. And there's a few other tribes involved. There's a California tribe I heard that came this year.
I think
we
Choctaws
have Choctaws here. I know we've had a conversation with them this week. So really ways that, really gives opportunities for our communities to get investments in companies to billions of dollars that comes out of this conference. So
and
really great.
Maybe even some delegations.
Yeah. So good times.
But again, that's not why we're here.
That's not why we're here today.
We always talk about the weather.
Yeah, the weather.
Rainy.
We talked about why we're here. Also, one last thing about our Washington, D.C. visit. I have been super busy on the Hill. One of the things I do some advocacy work. I go meet with congressional folks all over, up on the Senate side and the House side. So I had a great conversation with the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs today. Really good people over there.
Good deal, Chris. Way to go.
Yeah.
Way to represent.
Well, that's part of
and
what we do.
IGA's been full of people all day long today.
IGA has been full. So, just a lot of good advocacy going on in Washington, D.C. You can always, Yvette and I always talk about everybody has a voice. So it doesn't, anybody can advocate for programs. Anybody can advocate for our communities. So lots of resources, including a good friend that we have on the podcast today.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of advocates. So I'm excited because
I am too.
Cory and I mean, I'm a little bit older than Cory, but we've known each other for a very long time. I don't want to say all of Cory's life because I'm not that much older, I don't think. But I could be. I don't, but it's really good to have a friend on the podcast, Mr. Cory Blankenship. Cory, welcome to the Native Edge.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So why don't you tell us just a little bit about where you're from, and then we'll get into all these. We'll learn everything about you.
Sure. So I grew up a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. I grew up on the Cherokee Indian Reservation, Qualla Boundary in western North Carolina, and really grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather and my grandmother both ran businesses. My uncle started a bookstore that my wife and I have taken over in Cherokee now and keeping that family legacy going. But my grandfather was also on tribal council, 6 terms, served 2 terms as the tribal council chairman. And so I really grew up in this kind of political environment as well as the business environment. And of course, knowing at Eastern Band we were fortunate to have the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, so we had this tourism economy since the 1940s. And so just multiple members of my family have been involved in that tourism economy, either making handcrafts or running small businesses. And so I grew up in that. It's something that just came real natural to me, and that I had the opportunity to kind of take on. I went to North Carolina State University and studied political science. I kind of had it in my mind that I wanted to be in tribal leadership and work within the government and really kind of have that impact. But I wasn't really interested in studying business as like a formal career, right? Like I didn't want to go the MBA route. I went the MPA route and really studied government, studied politics, and really wanted to take a look at like what are the nuances about tribal government and how we are kind of all of the governments. We're a state government, we're a local government, we're the federal government, all rolled into one, and what that relationship looks like. Very early in high school, I had the opportunity to come to D.C. and advocate for a bill, which was actually the Ravensford Land Exchange bill, which gave us the property back from National Park Service to build our pre-K through 12 school campus.
Nice.
And so I was involved in that as a high schooler. Actually gave testimony before the House Resources Committee as a high schooler, and then early in my days at NC State, had the opportunity. Chief Jones would say, hey, can you fly up to D.C.? We're going to have some meetings this week. And, I would take a break from school, fly up for a day, do some meetings with our tribal council leaders, and Wilton Pipestem. I knew Wilton very early on. And we advocated for that bill, and were successful in getting passage of that bill and actually building a school campus there and on the Qualla Boundary. And so just very early on, a lot of interest in politics, a lot of interest in tribal governance. And then I kind of stumbled into tribal finance. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like we have an opportunity to do some amazing things. And so it wasn't until I actually started my professional career that I even got involved in finance. And now transitioning over to my new role at NAFOA as executive director. It's all of the best things that I got to work on in the past, and then I'm not in the political fray, right? We're representing 183 tribes across the country, and it's just all of the best parts of my career with Eastern Band are now coming to fruition on behalf of all tribes, and it's just really a fantastic place for me to be.
What a path.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you what, that is, so I'm going to back up a little bit, because that was, wow. I mean,
wow,
I'm blown away.
Can't say I was doing that. I was working at a department store, in high school.
I want my kids to find you as a mentor, because that whole idea. So I even want to start there, because we do have a lot of younger people listening.
Certainly.
A lot of times when you're the ages that you described when you were doing advocacy, a lot of kids are like, that's, the old people do that, or that's not my responsibility. Why did you feel like it was your responsibility, and what was what gave you that passion to start?
Well, I'll tell you how that process started. I had a civics teacher, and she said, I've always wanted a group to do this kind of mock legislative process, right? And it was a regional competition out of Asheville. And she said, I just think that, you all would be great. It was a small group of students, that you all would be great at this. And I've always wanted to take a group from Cherokee. And so ask around, find an issue that's important. And it was during the Dugan administration that this process actually started. And then it was continued by Chief Jones and his administration. And so we started doing research, and we said, let's take up this land exchange, right? Like, we really need a new school, and so let's talk about that. Let's have conversations about it. So it started as just a competition in civics, right? We happened to be interviewed on News 13 about our bill that successfully passed this mock legislature, and then my civics teacher was like, Congressman Charles Taylor saw your News 13 interview, and he wants y'all to come up and present about why this is important. And he was actually chair of the House Appropriations Committee at the time, right? So you can get a lot done as chairman of appropriations, and it really just started that way. It was a happy accident, if you will, that we got involved in that we got engaged. But what I like to share with young people too is that growing up, right, you would talk about, it's like, oh, the federal government, and you can't make any headway, and they don't care about what's happening here. And my experience was much different than that. It's like every time we came to DC, like, we had an audience, and there were people who were listening, and who were respectful, and who were interested in knowing more, and interested in advancing that position. And we didn't get everything that we asked for, right? But the door was open. And I think that that's an important narrative in our tribal communities. It's like, if you see something that needs to be done, then go and do it, right? Go and create that path for yourself. I was doing an interview with my grandfather. He's an NC State alum, and they were interviewing him for an alumni feature. And he said, my mama told me that if you wanted something, you had to go get it.
Yes.
And just, from humble beginnings, it's like, if you want it done, then let's spend our time creating things.
Yeah. And, having that legacy family, I mean, your uncle, your grandfather, your mom, I mean,
great role models.
They were all, and when I was working for the Sequoia Fund, and even when I was working for my dad, I mean, I would talk with all these folks and work with them, and I think having those influences sounds like it was pretty impactful to you as well.
No, absolutely, 110%. My wife and I had a conversation. We have 5 boys of our own, right? And she is very regimented, and she wants things done a certain way. And she was like, in your family, and I was like, nobody ever told me that this, it's expected that you go to school. Nobody ever sat me down and said, we expect you to do these things. Like, I just saw them happening, right? And it's like, I can emulate that. Like, I never felt pressure to go to school, or to study a certain thing, or to become involved in government. I just saw everybody around me doing it, and saying, like, this is how seeing that this is how you get things done.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same for me, with mom and dad, and, growing up, watching them go through successes and struggles in the restaurant business, right down the street from the bookstore, and
we love the Pizza Hut. So.
I love the Pizza Hut too.
Chris did make us a pizza.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, rest its soul. Pizza Hut. I love the Pizza Hut. Dairy Queen's still there.
Still Dairy Queen's
still there. But I think in a lot of our communities, youth don't see that role model. You and I had great role models in our parents and other relatives. What would some of your advice be on, maybe seeking out a role model? What's your ideas on there?
No, I think mentorship is key, right? And I think that being in leadership roles, having the great fortune to lead organizations and to be part of an organization, I think we also have a responsibility to reach back out to our communities and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. We've talked a lot about mentorship, and then my wife especially, she loves talking to young people and just kind of giving helpful advice, right? Even unsolicited helpful advice, right? It's like, so here are some things that you should think about. And with the business that she operates, she gets to spend quality time with folks. And what's interesting is young people asking her, right? Like, oh, I have this question about the miners trust fund, or, I saw my mom and dad do this with their financial resources. How do I not fall in that same trap? And she's able to point them in directions of where to ask questions, who to ask them of, and kind of where to find that information. And it's just amazing to see young people kind of asking questions, number one, but then having resources to be able to direct them to is really important.
The experience and knowledge.
Yeah. And Cory is one of our 40 under 40.
That's right.
So every year the National Center recognizes 40 individuals who are doing amazing things under 40 in Indian country, and Cory was one one of our few years ago. But, not I've been here yet.
No, I think it was 2019. I think
2019. Yeah. So that, and then his wife Jade was one of our small businesses of the year.
Right.
That was pretty awesome. So again, you're creating a legacy. So let's keep on talking. So you won the land exchange is pretty amazing to me, because that was already traditionally home.
That's right.
That was already our homeland, traditional Cherokee land. In fact, some of my roots were up in the Ravenswood area from my grandmother's people. But so when you went through the legislative process, when you actually did the exchange, what was the next steps? Were you working for the tribe then, or did you finish
No, I wasn't.
up?
I was still in school, and when 2009 is when they actually broke ground, and it may have been their first year in the new school system was 2009. I graduated in 2007 and moved back. Was working for a local nonprofit in the cultural tourism space and doing some program work with them. So all of that happened kind of as I was finishing my undergrad and moving back and kind of starting my career. They were moving in. But the interesting thing about that school system was back in, we'll call it 2007 to 2009, the tribe invested $120 million of its own money into building that school system. And they did it just through a traditional loan, bank financing with Wells Fargo. And they took it as a 10-year note. And one of the first things that I was able to do when I went into the Office of Budget and Finance is our principal chief at the time, Chief Hicks, said that we want to retire this debt early, like we want to get it out of the way, and so let's come up with a plan to accelerate that. And so we actually turned a 10-year note into a 4 or 5 year note, paid it off early. And I remember asking our bankers, I was like, how do you celebrate, celebrate paying off debt? Because we'd like to do some kind of ceremony. And he's like, well, churches in the area have what they call a note burning ceremony. And so we actually did that in the council house and kind of burnt the note for the school system. And that just kind of opened the doors for us. It's like, how do we think about debt? How do we think about building community assets, and what does the financing look like for those? And really a different scenario for the tribe being in the driver's seat, right, is to say we don't have to go out there and take a 10% bank note, right? Like we have enough resources that we really want to do this on a tax exempt basis. And how do you get a sub 2 on borrowing, right? And being able to work through those mechanics.
True exercise of sovereignty.
110%.
And we advocate that every day. I think too that, and there was also the need for that school.
Yes.
Was, just to give some background to our listeners, the schools they were old.
Yes.
I went to daycare back in the day. The high school had a daycare where high school students are sort of learning, about how to take care of kids, early education. And there was a pool in that high school. You remember?
Yeah.
An indoor pool?
And it never had water in it.
I think it might have had water the first year, like in the 70s. And then from there, it sort of went down. But so, the schools were small, they were decrepitating. And so, the need for having a new school, and it was a middle school and high school. Is that right?
That's right. So we were 2 separate campuses. We had our elementary school on one campus, which was kind of in the heart of downtown Cherokee, and then near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park entrance was our middle school and our high school facility. They were built in the 70s and 80s, right? And just, federal assets, BIE schools, kind of had fallen into disrepair, had some mold issues, had water issues, so they were just old facilities.
Probably
but
asbestos.
I remember my Cherokee language teacher talking about the students, though, and she said, they don't know that their buildings are falling apart, right?
That's
Like
true.
they have such a sense of pride in this school system that they don't recognize that they're going to school in some of the poorest conditions in Western North Carolina, and so that's really an interesting perspective too. Is like to talk about the ownership that the community had of that school system, and we still see it today, right? And what a sense of pride it was to open this. I mean, it was just gorgeous when it first opened. It's amazing still to this day. All 5 of our sons go to that school system, and I think, too, initially there were some concerns about, well, if you have all your students here, you've got pre-K to high schoolers, like what is the dynamic? And, our graduating seniors just walked the halls with our graduating preschoolers.
I saw that
and
online.
So,
it was
I've got a 5-year-old in the
cute.
preschool, and he
Yes.
walked with an older cousin who's graduating. And just that sense of community that you're able to create in that school system has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think what would even be amazing too is that they're going by and like
Yes,
kind of
yeah, they walk past the whole school.
Yeah,
they walk,
it's
and you see everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's there.
Those kids, that
Yeah.
means so much
Yeah.
to the little ones too.
It does, right?
It's pretty amazing too how your story about how to pay that off, and so what was your position in the tribe at the time, and how did you get the position?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked for a local nonprofit for the first part of my professional career, and then there was an opening in the Office of Budget and Finance for a grants compliance officer, and so I applied for that and got that position. And about 6 months into that role, our principal chief and our director of finance at the time said, really interested in building out some treasury functions, right? Like we're building investment accounts. We really need to have some in-house treasury functions, and we're curious about what that would look like. And are you interested in this role as tribal treasurer? And so stepped into that role as tribal treasurer, managing banking relationships, thinking creatively about how we finance certain things. How do we save for the future? How do we create these reserve accounts? How do we make this money work for us over the long term? And so we were able to do some phenomenal things that the tribe had already started, its major investment accounts, and then we did things like, okay, we have some savings every year in our higher education. Like, wouldn't it be great to create a permanent higher education endowment? So right now we're funding higher education with gaming dollars, but at some point in the future, if those gaming dollars were to shrink, how do we permanently endow our higher education so that in perpetuity we're able to send our citizens to higher ed, that they're able to earn those degrees? And so we started building that reserve fund. We did some interesting things with general welfare exclusion funds. Is like how do we maximize the opportunity to take advantage of favorable rules of the General Welfare Exclusion Act, and how do we implement those things into our community? So a lot of projects, a lot of really cool projects, and then some challenges as well, right? It's like we do the research, we talk to professionals, we talk to council, and we say there's a path forward and there's a way to do these things. And it's now you've got to stop and explain to the community why you're doing these things and why it's important to make those kind of long range investments and what that looks like. So some challenges there as well, especially as we say we're starting investment accounts in the market.
Vision,
and you get
like,
some
no, why
market
aren't we doing
opportunities.
this right now?
Right.
I bet there's hundreds of people that are just going back when they're listening to this podcast live. They're going back and listening to that just now. They're like, "Oh, I need to take notes on that."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I need to take notes." I'm like, "Oh, I'm." So one thing we're going to back up even more. Tell us even about Cherokee and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, because we didn't really explain what that. Of course, you and I know what it is, but maybe to our listeners, what is that?
So Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, if you think there are 3 federally recognized tribes of Cherokee, Eastern Band reside in the ancestral homelands of all Cherokee people, right? That is our land base there in Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, North Georgia, and then all the way up into Virginia and West Virginia, Kentucky area. So our traditional homelands, and then really the way that you end up with 3 federally recognized tribes of Cherokee is because of removal, right? 1836, 1838, the Trail of Tears. And so our roots are those that resisted removal, that negotiated citizenship, that purchased lands, right? And so that's the other thing that I think is important, especially for our tribal members, is that the land base of the Eastern Band was not given to them, were not given to our ancestors. They actually purchased all of those lands, and then they were taken into trust in 1924. So this wasn't like a federal set aside or a gift to say, okay, here, you Cherokee can have this piece of property. Like we were landowners,
Yes.
right? And we actually purchased those lands that we reside on. So today we're about 16,500 tribal members, about half of which reside within the trust lands of the tribe. And we've built a very robust and complex economic ecosystem, political system, social system there in Western North Carolina. We, since 1995, have operated gaming facilities at Eastern Band, always have had this tourism economy, right? Really kind of comes to fruition in the 40s with the creation of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and then the Blue Ridge Parkway. And it really gave our people an opportunity to stand up the mom and pop motels and to stand up the convenience stores and kind of the roadside attractions. Also allowed us to kind of carry on traditional Cherokee arts, right? So there's a market for Cherokee baskets and Cherokee pottery and Cherokee wood carving. And then cultural tourism, right? Like we think about Cherokee Historical Association or the Museum of the Cherokee People, and them being able to tell our own story there in that place, and also kind of run profitable businesses from that same model. So just, a very diverse economic ecosystem, political system there in Western North Carolina. Come into gaming in 95, hugely successful with gaming. Opened a second facility in 2015. And then in 2020, in the height of COVID, right, we said we're going to dip our toe into the commercial market and start making acquisitions and doing some greenfield development outside of our traditional, our territory. Outside of our trust lands, but still part of our traditional territory, right? And that was one of the things that I was thinking about. I had the opportunity to be involved in the board in the early days.
And you were actually, now you're working for the tribe at this point?
Yeah, so I was working for the tribe at this point.
Still the treasurer?
I had moved into a role of Secretary of the Treasury under Chief Sneed. And then it was really that, we created EBCI Holdings, which is the commercial gaming hospitality entity. They created Gadua LLC, which is the non-gaming, kind of all other economic development opportunities,
spent
both
some time
on
with
and off
Andrew
boundary. Yeah,
just last week. Andrew Akuma, who I went to high school with, and he's running that.
Yes,
Right.
and he was on tribal council.
He was on tribal council
when we were doing these transactions and kind of making these plans. But thinking back on the early days of those economic development opportunities, and even further than that, my grandfather was a tribal planner as one of his first jobs with the tribe before he was on council. And he's like, we're bringing the shopping centers here, and we were trying to bring the flag hotels here, and we were trying to help people get loans and resources and grants to kind of stand up these tourism, these hospitality-based businesses. And just kind of thinking like we never really stepped outside of that, right? We always got really good at certain things, and then we would pursue the next level of work that came with it. But just a phenomenal opportunity for Eastern Band, right? I remember when we went to Indiana, when we went to Kentucky, when we went to Virginia, and it's like we have the opportunity to own assets in all 8 states of the original Cherokee territory, and that should be our goal, right? Like we want to have a presence in all of the states. We want to have a good working relationship with the states and the communities where we're going, and we've got a track record of doing things the right way. And what's interesting too is like as we're thinking about the work of NAFOA and we're talking about the current agenda of rural America, of creating jobs and kind of reinforcing the United States economy, I don't think anybody does that better than tribes.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And when you invest in tribes, you're really investing in regional economies. And we rely on those regional economies. We rely on that workforce. And I was thinking about this the other day too, like, a grant to the town adjacent to the boundary, that doesn't necessarily flow to the boundary, right? But if you make a grant on the boundary, that's economic development, it will naturally flow to all of the small towns, all of the counties, and the entire region. And so I think we have a tremendous opportunity, especially in this administration, to kind of tell that story and say, hey, we're really a big part of this narrative about not only the United States economy, but strong regional economies.
I mean, you're one of the Eastern Band is one of the top, maybe the number one employer of North Carolina with job
Western North
creation.
Carolina, yes.
So, I mean, Western North Carolina. So, I mean, a lot of folks really don't understand, I call it the trickle-down effect of how many jobs that's created. But you're talking thousands and thousands of jobs still in rural America in an underserved market. I mean, we're just a high poverty area.
Absolutely.
So Western North Carolina, they're having the Eastern Band there supporting Western North Carolina, not only through the jobs, but also through Preservation Foundation,
Absolutely,
which is
yes.
pretty amazing. And now this whole moving to other states, which is a great, I mean, you're creating jobs there. You have a Buc-ee's in Tennessee. Is that?
Yeah, we own a development.
Was that
in
one of your
Gatlinburg,
projects
Tennessee.
too?
So that one's under the umbrella. So I was involved in the land purchase, right?
Okay.
And so we're saying we have an opportunity to buy
Yes.
this land at an incredible rate, right? And there was some pushback there too. It's like, why are we buying land in Tennessee? Well, it's ancestral territory.
Sure.
The bank owns it, right?
Yeah.
So it's troubled, so
Yeah.
we
You can
can
have
get
a
it at a
trail,
great price. And then what are you going to do with it? And I was like, it doesn't matter. Like we just need to have
Yeah.
it. We actually ended up buying both sides of the interstate. Interstate 40 runs right through Sevier County, Tennessee. And what we learned from United States Department of Transportation is that intersection is the second busiest intersection
say,
in
like
the
13
country.
million people
Yeah,
that go through there?
it's huge, right? So all of that flow from Knoxville, from Nashville into that Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge market, they come through that intersection. So to own both sides of that road, and just tremendous development potential. It's like you don't have to do anything with it right away. Just
could
own
do
the
that
assets
app.
and
The app I was mentioning,
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
we
Yeah,
were kind of
like
talking
locating.
about it,
Yeah.
like come see Cherokee
Yes.
and the ancestral homelands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this takes you on this journey
Yeah.
through all the states.
Absolutely.
And like the village
Yes.
that's in Cherokee,
Yeah.
but now it's a drivable.
It's not an
Same
app, but
thing.
there is a book called Cherokee Heritage Trails, and it talks about current kind of cities and towns in the southeast and kind of their traditional tie to traditional Cherokee villages, and so there's a series of roadways, like road trips that you can take and see different Cherokee sites and towns. So
And and if you've never been, it's such a beautiful landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even describe it.
Yeah.
You need to be a poet to describe this, but it's nestled in this valley, to me, what I see. And
I can't
I'm from
wait, 'cause
Arizona.
we're from there, so
yeah,
you
I know. So
describing it.
I'm
Yeah,
from
you
Arizona,
describe it.
and it
Yeah.
kind of reminded
love
me
it.
of Sedona. The back road from Flagstaff to Sedona is what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
And very scenic, very beautiful.
Except no rocks.
Green.
Everything's green. Yeah.
Waterways trickling down. You can hear the birds, different species flying around. I mean, the elk that are right in town. I saw 2 elk trying to go into a store. I mean, really. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
You just don't have that,
Yes.
And very picturesque,
Yeah.
very beautiful,
Yeah.
very, very
yeah,
beautiful.
we're definitely very blessed to live where we live, and driving home sometimes, coming back from Asheville or Waynesville, and you come down the Parkway, it's just like
And the
pull
colors.
over and
Yeah.
just like and take it all in.
I get tears in my eyes. I mean, literally, because I mean, when you live far away and then you go home, I mean, we talk about going home a lot. I mean, but when I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm physically crying because of the absolute passion and beauty of Western North Carolina and back home in Cherokee.
And then take it a step
I even
further.
said
that
to
our
staff, I
ancestors
said,
been
this must
here.
have been hard for Chris
Yeah.
to leave.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I
But
totally
to
get
take
it.
that beauty a step further and just to sit there and think that our people have walked these mountains for 10,000 years.
10,000 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. And so amazing development, and I love your journey. And this journey has been, so when did you choose to go now to a national organization, which I want to hear all about. I want to hear your plans for NAFOA, and I even want you to describe what NAFOA is.
Sure. So I left tribal government in 2023 and went to work for a private health foundation in the region, the Dogwood Health Trust. And the Dogwood Health Trust is a $2 billion foundation that was born from the sale of the largest health system in Western North Carolina. So it went from a nonprofit health system to a for-profit health system. And basically the state said, you've got to start this foundation and you've got to put those resources back into the communities. And so they created this foundation, and it did grant making in housing and economic development, in education, and then also in health and wellness, especially around substance use disorder and substance use in our communities. And so we had a mandate of getting $75 million in grant and impact investments out the door every year.
Wow.
And so it's just just a huge job, right? And to say, okay, well, who are our partners? Where do we align? Like, who are the best at using these funds and kind of delivering services and being proximate to community? So just fantastic work that I was able to do. I'd been connected to NAFOA since 2011 when I started with Eastern Band. I started there in 2010, and then had the opportunity, as I stumbled into tribal finance, to start attending NAFOA conferences. And I tell the folks at NAFOA today, I was like, some of our best ideas at Eastern Band were born from NAFOA conferences, right? The connections that we made with legal counsel, with practitioners, that's where our ideas about, absolutely, where our ideas about general welfare exclusion came, where we learned about tax exempt debt offering that we used to finance our hospital facilities. Those connections were made through NAFOA. And so just all of this opportunity, it's like, okay, we make connections with the folks who are doing it, who know how it's done, and then let's talk to them about some projects and things that we want to do in our community and how we use those same tools to do those things. And so loved attending NAFOA conferences and making those connections. I was at the Dogwood Health Trust and didn't have any intention of leaving Dogwood Health Trust. And then someone reached out about this opportunity that NAFOA was searching for an executive director, and would you be interested? And said, sure, I'll have the conversation. And got the opportunity to meet the board and interview, and they made the offer. And it's like, this is a full circle moment for me, right? Like to come back to an organization and to have an opportunity to take the great work that we were doing at Eastern Band and kind of magnify that on a larger scale and be able to connect tribes with those resources and with those ideas that could really be impactful in their tribal communities is just a tremendous privilege for me. And I think everybody needs to know about NAFOA and the work, but more importantly needs to make connections to the community that NAFOA has built. And
well, I got connected to NAFOA when I was at the Sequoia Fund, just because of their work in the CDFI industry too. I mean, they when you is it still Native American Financiers Officers Association?
So
or is that gone?
My communications director will tell you it is NAFOA and just NAFOA. And we will say founded as the Native American Finance Officers.
We can. My apologies.
Everybody's getting used to it. Even the church still getting used to it.
Well, we also have a mouthful of a name, but we can't really. Is really funny for NCAIED.
Yes,
there's different names. When we hear people say it, we're just like, it's a little.
The National Center.
The National Center.
Yes, that's probably the better way. So you're here now. You're at NAFOA. It's a national organization. You guys are doing some amazing work. Definitely doing some work around taxation. But tell me sort of your vision on how we can,
Certainly.
Yeah.
So NAFOA is doing phenomenal work across Indian country. Just continue to grow our member tribes. We represent 183 tribes across the country who are member tribes of NAFOA.
And people can join, right?
I was going to say, is there? So there's a fee to join.
Yes,
Okay.
tribes can join. And, you pay an annual membership fee to be, and it's a flat fee. It's not a percentage of your budget.
The 4 people can go. There's not like these
and
tiers
you get breaks
or
on
anything.
registration, and we do exclusive things for member tribes. We give them access to certain resources of NAFOA for being a member tribe. We always have a member tribe meeting at our conferences, which is just a great opportunity to engage in dialogue. It's really important for us to hear from our member tribes about what their priorities are, any roadblocks that they're encountering with their policy and advocacy efforts, any ways that we can be impactful as an organization and kind of leverage the NAFOA brand, right, to give some visibility to those issues is really important. So just a fantastic team at NAFOA, small but mighty, right? There's a small team that just does phenomenal work. So we're up to 9 now team members in 3 time zones. Great. So it's been phenomenal. And then a handful of contractors and support partners that help us along the way, but a core staff of 9 individuals who just love their work, and it's really evident in the quality of the work and the pride that they take in what they do. We host 2 conferences every year, a spring and a fall conference, and so just coming off of our spring conference in New Orleans, which was record-breaking attendance, standing room only.
Oh, way to go!
And I'll tell you the thing that I appreciated most about the spring conference is it was great to connect with folks who I'd seen at NAFOA over, for years and years. And just the number of them that told me it's great to see, old faces and see old friends, but the number of new people that are in this space is fantastic. Like we've been wanting to see this, so we see emerging tribal leaders, emerging practitioners, really wanting to know more and being engaged in this community and becoming involved. And so that was really good feedback for us to hear at this conference. Also, NAFOA has been very intentional about their growth, right? It's like we don't want to be this large gathering. We don't want to have to move to a convention center. Like we want to protect the intimacy and the knowledge sharing of those conferences. And so it's kind of a balancing act too. It's like how do we give folks of what they're looking for, but also kind of protect the brand and the image of.
It's so tough to balance.
It is,
that,
yeah. So. Yeah. We go back and forth, and it's like, well, if we did this, and it's like, well, do we really want to, do we really want to do that? And is
it always in a certain area each year?
It's not. So we move around. We move around. We try to balance East Coast, West Coast. We try to be proximate to tribal communities. One of the things that we do is have a host tribe at our conference so that we can highlight their history and their culture and acknowledge being on their lands or in their areas, but to highlight the projects that they're working on, right? The success that they've seen in building their tribal economy and just their leadership. We'll do a Tribal Leader of the Year award and a Tribal Executive of the Year award. So just a great opportunity to recognize folks who are doing exceptional work and to give folks the opportunity to have conversation and to meet those folks and hopefully spark some ideas about things that you can take back to your tribal community and really get them done.
And when did it start?
So it started in the 80s. So NAFOA has been around for since the early 80s. It was founded as a nonprofit out of the Reno Sparks Indian Colony.
Really? Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's a tribally chartered nonprofit organization, and so it just kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, right? Like it started strong, and then it's like, okay, we're not sure kind of where we fit in the mix of other tribal organizations, right? Or an economic downturn, or and then we pick back up, and then just my experience since 2011 is it's grown a little bit each time, and now even the staff is like, we don't know what to do, right? Like we don't know, do we cut this off? Do we just let it happen? And then just trying to be accommodating to the needs of Indian country and to the needs of our tribe. But we do have some ideas going forward. What I found stepping into the executive director role is like the team was just brimming with ideas, right? They were just waiting on that leadership to kind of say, yes, we're gonna take that idea, we're gonna hit the ground running, we're gonna stand this up, we're gonna make that happen. So we've got some fantastic things in the pipeline. Really, my primary focus is adding value for our member tribes, right? They're paying membership dues, they're participating in the conferences, but we also want you to have the talking points on the tribal tax bill. We also want you to have a download of what TTAC is doing and what their next meeting is going to look like. We want you to have access to the history of a particular piece of legislation and what's been done previously and what worked and what didn't. We want you to see the success stories of other tribes, and especially for a practitioner who may be new to tribal governance or new to tribal economic development, to kind of have those resources at their fingertips in a way that's kind of easy to access and easy to understand, and then easy to ask questions about it.
It's what a great organization. They are so lucky. I'm glad you chose that path, because I mean, just listening to your background and more. I mean, some of it was new to me. I mean, it's so important. It was so great that they brought you on, and what a again, a new legacy that you're creating there. And I'm so excited about sort of the next step, the next evolution to see. And I'm, as a national organization as well, love the ability to just have that partnership, because right now, we've been, there's a lot of coalitions that we are on joint calls and around advocacy work. And, I have to commend all the Native organizations for the advocacy work we've been doing for years, but really seeing leaders like you step it up, and you said stepping up, and NCAIED stepping up, and everybody's just really looking for that, knowing that we need to all advocate together. We may have, still in one voice, are working on different things, or even sometimes working on different ideas, but all advocating together is pretty awesome. And I was so happy when I heard you came aboard.
Thank you. It's been phenomenal. It doesn't feel like work at all. Like it's just been
Time
really
flies
great.
by very fast. We're so
and,
busy.
Fantastic experience, great team, and it's just to have that support and to know that kind of other folks have laid the groundwork for the work that we're able to do and kind of take things to the next level. It's just been a great experience for me.
Well, I've always heard nothing but great things about NAFOA.
Yeah.
So
and on some of the work that you're working on, what are a couple of objectives that you guys are trying to get done this year?
Certainly.
That you really are maybe need some support from other organizations, or say, I'm really focused on this just to get it across the goal line.
Certainly. So I like to tell folks that I certainly picked an interesting time to get involved in the federal, Indian policy scene, because it's been quite the whirlwind as we transitioned administration. But I've also been pleasantly surprised at the number of conversations that we've been able to have to be able to find alignment with our priorities and the administration's priorities. We've talked a little bit about rural economic development and supporting rural America, supporting job creation and building robust economies, but two, ending over-regulation, right? And I had a conversation a few weeks ago with an agency, and I was like, no one is more interested in federal efficiency than Indian tribes.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you want to know about inefficient processes, talk to tribes about their 250 years of experience in working with this government, right? Nobody's done it longer, and nobody has more experience with it.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to see some efficiencies in those systems, and we'd love to see the end of some of the burdensome regulation and over-regulation of these tribal programs. And so it's been really interesting to have those conversations and to see progress in that, right? I think a lot of folks were a little bit afraid that is like maybe all of our work kind of grinds to a halt and we just, sit here in a defensive position and try to protect what we can. But it's been really fascinating to me to kind of sit down, tell that story, and have reception to that, right? And to say that you're right, that's something we need to work on. And so I think that there's some light at the end of the tunnel, right? Of some things that we have started, particularly with the TTAC, and TTAC has had a tremendous impact. There's a Treasury Tribal Advisory Committee. We advocated for TTAC to kind of remain operational, and it was actually started under the first Trump administration. And so we had an angle there to say, you started this good work and it's important for you to continue that work. And it's important to keep that committee operational.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yvette and I talk a lot about, you're running this national organization. You're doing all this work. You and your wife have some small businesses, and you have 5 awesome kids. Yes. Tell us a little. Are they all boys?
They're all boys.
Ranging in the ages
all
of
on different schedules.
What are their ages range?
My oldest is 17, and our youngest is 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about work-life balance. How do you? You know, a lot of folks when it's hard. So talk a little bit about how you guys balance that.
It is hard, and I do say I think we're really fortunate because all of the work that we're doing doesn't always feel like work, right?
Yeah.
Like it's stuff that we're passionate about, and that I grew up in a family that ran businesses and ran tribal governments and sat on boards and committees, and it just, I don't know, it's a very natural place for us to kind of to operate in, and to say, like, you've got to have balance, right? And we want our boys to see us working hard, but we also want to see them take advantage kind of the fruits of that work, right? And so we get the opportunity to take some awesome vacations and to have some really memorable experiences, but that only comes in putting in the work when the work needs to be done. So I think it's really important for us to find that balance. And even with as busy as the work is with NAFOA, my wife and I had this conversation too. It really doesn't feel like you're working that hard, even though the schedule is just jam-packed of things to do, because it's important work and it's very fulfilling work.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing. And a couple of years ago, we met up at the powwow, July 4th powwow. Right. So how many of your boys dance?
So just the 2 youngest boys were dancing. Okay. So my wife grew up dancing. She's from Spokane. And so they had a more robust powwow circuit when they were growing up than what we had access to. But she grew up dancing, and she said, I want the boys to be able to do this, and they just kind of naturally fell in. The funny thing about that is anytime there's an event at that same venue, they're like, we got to go dance, and we're like, that's the car show. So I'm like, there's not powwow dancing at the car show. So.
That's funny. Are they
so
funny. Northern traditional?
They were doing grass.
Grass dance.
So she started them out with grass dance and some. So
it's pretty amazing, and there's so many cool connections because you and I have a connection. Jade has a connection with our chief of staff, Aaron. I think they're cousins.
They grew up together.
Yeah. And then Jade's mom worked at the tribe when I was doing some economic development with the tribe back in the day. So she
was my boss when I.
Oh, she was your boss.
So I actually knew Jade's mom before I knew Jade. So
how funny! So many connections.
And the country's really small.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, that's great.
But that's
so great.
Still, I mean, it's so. I think. It's us having the ability to sit down and talk about it, I think is really great, but also sharing stories because it also, we're all trying to get to the next level. With our organizations trying to get to the next level, or our businesses are trying to get to the next level, or individually you're trying to lift each other up. I mean, I think that's so important for me, and I think that's just the spirit of Indian country.
Yeah, I believe so too. And so one of the first times, so I grew up on a trout hatchery, right, at Eastern Bend. My wife grew up on a salmon hatchery in Spokane, Washington. And one of the first times that I met my father-in-law, he's like, you're not related to Bob Blankenship, are you? And I was like, that's my grandfather. And he was like, oh, we heard all about Bob raising trout and like what he was doing there in Carolina. And so there's just like all of these connections.
That's great.
All of these fantastic examples of folks doing really good things in their communities. And so like, let's take that and replicate that in other tribes.
That's so rewarding.
So here's another maybe possibly connection. We were in Kayana, Alaska, which is a very small village away from
everything.
Yeah, everything. and one of our great board members, Harvey Sandbeck, she lives up there, and I think there's the name Blankenship is up in that area. I don't know if there's any connection, but just...
I had an uncle that lived in Moose Pass, and he ran a salmon hatchery there in Moose Pass, Alaska.
So just amazing, how the connectivities and just great things. But, well, my friend, we could talk all day, but I know you're here in Washington, D.C. We got still a lot of work to do. I really appreciate your friendship through the years, your support. I want to vow that the National Center, we're always there to support you in any way we can and partner, and look forward to that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Any
thank you for
final
having me.
thoughts? Did we leave anything out that you were like, I hope they asked this, or?
No, I don't believe so. I just think, the network is really small. It's great to see those connections and to leverage those relationships. And I think any opportunity that we have to do that, whether it's through the conferences, or I think you all do a phenomenal job with the Native Edge Institutes. And so just really thank you for being out there and offering this program in Indian Country. And I'll offer the same to you from NAFOA, that any way we can be supportive, we want to do that.
Great. Well, I can't wait to for the next time, and next time I'm home, we definitely need. I was only home for just a couple of days.
Yeah.
Next time,
More to come.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And to our watchers and listeners, thank you so much for another episode of The Native Edge. We are the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So any support for us or our partner NAFOA really helps. Look at both of our organizations, check us out, look at ways how you can get involved in our communities. We have both of our websites are filled with information on advocacy and how to get involved and information. Become a member of NAFOA. I would recommend everyone to join NAFOA and also attend and look at the National Center's work that we do. We do events all over the country. We put on the Reservation Economic Summit. That'll be coming up in March 2026. Some more to come on that. I am Chris James.
Yvette Fielder.
Until next time, Native Edge.